Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Welcome to the Gist. Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto will be the chief guest at the Republic Day celebrations on the 26th. An Indonesian Army contingent will also lead the parade. So these are clearly signals that are being sent out about the new turn in the relationship. We'll like to learn more from our guest, Sandeep Chakravorty, ambassador in Jakarta. Sandeep, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Surya. Happy to be on Gist.
So, what is it that this entire visit of President Prabowo will signify? He's the chief guest at our Republic Day parade. What is it that we are telling the world?
You see, President Prabowo assumed office on October 20th, so it has been barely 3 months that he has been the president of Indonesia. I think India, will inviting him to be chief guest at our Republic Day parade, which everyone knows is a very significant honor. I think shows that India wants to further deepen the already strong ties that India has with Indonesia, and him accepting to come here also send a large marching contingent comprising of more than 350 troops and band shows that he has more than welcomed the invitation, and he has reciprocated, and he is coming with a very high level delegation. So I think he is keen to make new beginnings. When I say new beginnings, I don't mean that there doesn't exist substance in the relationship. It is a strong relationship, but I think he wants to enter into new areas, and I think that is the message we all want to convey.
So, in that sense, although we are old civilizations, we are rediscovering each other. That's what you're telling us, isn't it? So, what has triggered this?
You see, India and Indonesia are old civilizations, and there has been long-term contact between the two countries. The cultural contact. If you read The Golden Road by William Dalrymple, I think that brings it out very nicely. The cultural connect between Southeast Asia and India, the Suvarna Bhumi, and the old kingdoms, the Nalanda and Buddhism and Hinduism, and even Islam into Indonesia came from India. So there has been a strong people-to-people contact and cultural and religious ties between the two countries. And during the Indonesia's independence movement, also India and our leadership, our nationalist leadership, worked very closely with the Indonesian nationalist leadership, and those ties were strong. India was the first country to move a resolution in the UN Security Council demanding that cessation of hostilities between the Dutch and the Republic. So that is well appreciated. The role of Biju Patnaik is well appreciated. So it has been there, and then the non-aligned movement and the Bandung Conference. So we have a lot of history, and what has happened in the recent past is that both countries want to become developed countries. India has this vision of Viksit Bharat. Indonesia has a vision of EMAS. EMAS means Golden Indonesia by 2045. And both countries realize that this pathway can be reached, can be accomplished by closer ties between the two countries. We are young demographies. Our pathways are digital. We want to get into manufacturing. We don't want to just trade. We want investment. So I think the stories are very similar. I think that creates spaces and opportunities for new bonds to emerge. So I think a lot of what is happening is going to happen, but there are new areas of cooperation. And even in the geostrategic sphere, both countries have similar foreign policy outlook. Indonesia has something known as free and active foreign policy, which matches with our vision of the world and our strategic autonomy. We don't want to get into any blocks. The way India handled the Russia-Ukraine issue also, I think, went down well with Indonesia. Both are partners of in G20. I think the G20 also acted as a glue. The Bali conference and then the New Delhi declaration. I think India and Indonesia were part of the Troika, and now Indonesia joining BRICS. I think many layers are there in the relationship, and we are keen to add more and more layers so that our two countries, who are actually neighbors, maritime neighbors, 160 kilometers
Yeah.
uh, in Indonesian, land from Indira Point. So there are lots that can happen. We may not be operating at full potential, but the base is high. It's not that we are starting from a low base. So it's not that we are talking of potential only in the air. There is a strong base, but I think we can do much more.
Mhm. You mentioned BRICS earlier. What about BIMSTEC? Is there something about happening in BIMSTEC too?
I don't think that we have yet reached out to Indonesia on BIMSTEC. I think, but it's a possibility. People are talking about it. At least in the track two, there has been discussion on BIMSTEC, but we have not made any formal proposal. I think the BIMSTEC has recently changed its charter, which allows new members to come in. So that's a very recent development. I'm not aware if we have made any formal approaches to other countries, but that's certainly a possibility.
Let's come to foreign and defense policies. There's been a lot of play in the media about BrahMos missiles going to Indonesia. Could you tell us something more about where this defense relationship is going?
Yeah, I will not like to give play to the stories in the media, because I think they are presumptive. They do not always capture what is happening. But having said that, there has been a continuous discussion with Indonesia. There has been an expression of interest in acquiring our defense systems. BrahMos is one of them, certainly, but I would not like to say that it has reached any maturity. I think these are continuing discussions. And secondly, there is a lot of interest in Indonesia in our defense industrialization that is happening. That is also a very new phenomenon. We certainly had defense industry in the past, but now our defense industrialization has picked up a lot of momentum, and we are now becoming an exporter of significant quantities of defense material. So I think there is interest in that, and Indonesia wants to work with India on certain technology, certain areas. But I will not like to say that at the moment that these have fructified, or these are still under discussion. And we hope that this visit will help in propelling those discussions forward.
What about that port project in Aceh that we were looking at some years back?
That project also, we have finalized. We have prepared a DPR, but I think not. I think what we are waiting for is a formal response from the Indonesian side. So the ball is in their court as far as the Sabang port is concerned.
Indonesia occupies a strategic location, straddling the choke points leading into the South China Sea. So, when you look at that and I mean, do you see that as a potential, kind of leading the way towards a greater understanding on strategic issues, maritime issues?
Yes, you see, as I mentioned before, Indonesia is a maritime neighbor. We are aware of the straits, the Lombok Strait, the Sunda Straits, and the Malacca Straits. These are straits through which large maritime traffic of the world passes. So it is in the interest of both countries and other neighboring countries to ensure that these choke points remain open, and there is no piracy in this area. There is control on IUU fishing, maritime pollution issues are there, oil spills are there. Then HADR, this you will realize this is a typhoon and cyclone prone area. Also, volcanic explosions take place in Indonesia. So I think both countries work together very closely on several issues. A lot of traffic takes place. Maritime traffic passes through there. Off and on, we find issues concerning sailors. There are issues, medical issues, evacuation issues. So both countries work very closely on these issues, and I think it is a natural area of cooperation, and a lot of cooperation is happening. We do a lot of exercises together. We have held several. I think we have almost reaching 50 the number of coordinated patrols we do in the maritime in the Andaman Sea, and in the mouth of the Malacca Straits. Our navies cooperate very very closely. We have frequent ship visits. Our Navy chief was in Indonesia 2 3 weeks back. The Navy chief is coming for the Republic Day of Indonesia, is coming to India. So there is lot of service to service cooperation. Military exercises, we did Garuda Shakti. We're going to participate in Komodo, which is going to take place middle of February. We recently had the French led multinational exercise La Perouse in the Straits of. So lot is happening on that, and I think both countries fully value each other in this sphere.
Would you say that President Prabowo, given his military background, has is giving a certain push to this relationship in that sense, the strategic dimension at least?
I would like to think so. Yes, that is true, and I think also not only strategic in the terms of defense, but I think Indonesia is certainly playing or wanting to play a bigger role in international affairs. That explains, the decision to join BRICS. That explains his tours, recent tours. He went to many countries. He went to
Yeah.
China, US, UK, Peru, Brazil. He will Then he went to Egypt for the D8 meeting. He's coming here. Then he's going to Malaysia, and I believe in the coming months he will be visiting several countries. So there is certainly an urge, as evident from talking to my interlocutors, talking to think tanks, and seeing on the ground what is happening. That Indonesia wants to play a bigger role in world affairs, and I think it is rightly placed to do that. It is straddles the Indo-Pacific. It is a true Indo-Pacific power. It has good ties with the major players. It has good
Mhm.
ties with China, with Australia, with the US, with Europe, with India. So I think it is rightly placed to play a bigger role in world affairs, and it played a role in the sense that it was right up in the front, and wanting a peace in the Middle East. And I think Indonesia is important player in the region, and it wants to get more active. And of course, it has the benefit of having with itself the ASEAN member states, and it believes in ASEAN centrality. And I think if all partners believe in ASEAN centrality, then Indonesia is very, very central to ASEAN.
What about China? You know, they are close partners, trading partners. China is a huge investor in Indonesia. But are there concerns about China's muscle flexing in that part of the world?
You said this is a question I think best answered by Indonesia. It's not appropriate for me to say that. But having said that, of course, China is an important player in Indonesia. It is a big investor. It is a trading partner. It buys lots of Indonesian products. And I think if you are a strong economic partner, it is natural to at least assume that you will have a bigger role in determining the future of the relationship. And I think that is largely true, but that I don't think is China specific. There are other countries also who have a strong ties with Indonesia. So I believe that Indonesia seriously tries to practice its free and active in foreign policy, and it allows space for all other partners to engage with Indonesia. I think that would be a more correct description of its foreign policy.
Now, among ASEAN states, we have the largest trading figures with Indonesia, I think $30 billion or so. How do you explain this? What are we doing right, that we're not doing with the others?
You see, Indonesia is a big country. It is a huge country in terms of land area, also in terms of population. And it is a resource-rich country. It has materials which are needed for Indian economy. So some of the things that we buy from Indonesia are coal. Coal is abundantly available in Indonesia. We need coal. So a large part of the trade volume is coal. Then also Indonesia produces crude palm oil in large quantities.
Yeah.
Again, we need crude palm oil. So I think these two or three, there are some other commodities that we buy from Indonesia. These are basically the export basket from Indonesian side. And we sell mostly manufactured items and some primary material like steel, etc. but and textiles. So I think the problem, or not the problem, the issue rather, in our trade ties is the balance of trade. It is hugely in favor of Indonesia, and we have to see how we can address that. I will not say that all trade ties are equally balanced, but some semblance of balance, I think, is our expectation, and we should work on that.
Looking forward, Sandeep, the president will be here. There'll be discussions and all that. Would you like to speculate on what we could possibly be the outcomes from this summit?
I think you see the Indonesian development journey and the Indian development journey are very similar. We have young demographies. We want to be developed countries. Both the countries have a huge social sector focus. Indonesia has now launched the midday meal scheme. It wants to go in for large scale housing for the poor, affordable housing. Some of these experiences are our experiences, I think, will be very relevant for Indonesia. Digitalization, how we are unrolling our tax regime, GST, our direct taxes. These are some of the learnings which I think we can share with Indonesia, how we have been able to do direct benefit transfer, how UPI is so successful in India. I think there is great deal of interest in these lessons from India. It is not necessarily that India can do big projects. India doesn't do big projects in countries which are more developed than India. Indonesia's per
True.
capita is more than India. So we don't. I think imagining the problem is we are always trying to compare with issues, things like BRI. We don't. Nowhere in the world are we trying to do projects like the BRI. So I don't think we should go down that line or lane. Rather, where we can make an impact is what we are doing in India, how sharing our lessons, sharing our technologies, and that is happening. There are more than 100 Indian headquartered companies in Indonesia, which I think is very significant. Startup system run by Indians in Indonesia is also very large. How our banking, some of our priority sector lending experiences, the funding that is available to startups. How can we help in sharing our lessons? How can the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem in Indonesia, that can progress? Our defense industrialization, that is another area. Energy transition, how our solar experiences, our biofuel experiences. These, I think, are the new connects which will bind India and Indonesia, and I think there will be discussion on that.
What about space? Is there something there happening there?
Yes, good point. We have solid space cooperation. We have a tracking station in Indonesia, which has been there for several years now. And when a satellite or a rocket is launched from Kota, station to pick up the tracking is based out of Indonesia. We have recently transferred the station to Indonesia. That's again a very significant decision which government of India took, of transferring the upkeep and management to Indonesia. We are paying a fees using those facilities, and we are trying to build a new tracking station. When our manned flight takes place, the first point for rescue in case there is a need will be Indonesia. So our assets will be based out of Indonesia. Then even in the private sector space, new approaches have been made. We have been launching Indonesian satellites. Some of our companies have offered to build satellites for Indonesia. So a very robust discussion is happening, and I think space is again one area where you will find a great deal of private sector cooperation emerging between these discussions, through this discussion.
Last word from you, Sandeep. When you look at the relationship from your place in Jakarta, what is it that you see?
Well, I see both countries very similar in their domestic priorities and foreign policy outlooks, and I think that binds us together. We are not trying to. It's a give and take kind of a relationship. We have lots to learn from Indonesia, how they have developed their countries. It has a strong base. We have strong trade ties. We have strong investment ties. Indian companies are present in Indonesia. Indonesian companies are present in India. We have a significant diaspora. And I think we have to do more of the same, and also look at new emerging areas of cooperation. I think India's development story, Indonesia development story, they coincide, and I think the overlap has to be increased. The footprints in each other's countries, they have to become bigger. I think we are on the right track.
Ambassador Chakravorty in Jakarta, pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Surya. It has been a pleasure talking to you as well.
That's all we have for you on this edition of this conversation with Ambassador Sandeep Chakravorty. We'll have more for you going forward. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.